Welcome. This talk is a general introduction to our Taught MSc programs, general as opposed to being specific to any one of the individual disciplines such as artificial intelligence or cybersecurity or whatever. So you will also be hearing from the director of your specific degree program, but my role here is to tell you something about the overall MSc program. My name is Perdita Stevens. I'm one of the professors here in the School of Informatics at the University of Edinburgh, and I am the MSc course organiser this year. I should confess this is the first year I've been the MSc course organiser, so there are many things I don't know, and of course, as we are all so sadly aware, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Many things are different from usual, so I ask your forbearance. We are all going to have to discover and invent how things should be as we go along to some extent. However, you can look forward to, I hope, an exciting year, lots of intellectual challenges. For many of you it will be an exciting year in a great city. Edinburgh is a fantastic city. I know some of you will be watching this remotely and will sadly be unable to be with us in Edinburgh at the moment. I very much hope you'll be able to visit us in Edinburgh and experience Edinburgh in happier times in future. We'll just have to see as we go on. There will be lots of intellectual challenges throughout this year, and there will be a huge amount of work. If you engage with the work and enjoy it, I think you're going to have a fantastic year. Okay, so in the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to say a little bit about the organisation of the MSc programmes overall, and something about selecting courses, and a few other things that come up as we go on. And there will be an opportunity for asking questions when this is played for live, I think, if you're watching this and there doesn't seem to be an opportunity for asking questions. I may be the person to ask. You can always email me. If I'm not the right person to ask, I'll tell you who is. I'm recording this talk a little while before the start of the year, and so this number of students on the MSc course this year is likely to change. I think it's going to be at least 250. And we have students from a vast number of countries, and this makes for a vibrant community. You have the opportunity to meet students from many different places with many different kinds of expertise. It may be a little more difficult this year than in previous years, but we will do our very best to give you opportunities to do that, and please do try to benefit from this opportunity to join such an exciting intellectual community. Some of you will very understandably be concerned about studying in English, especially if you haven't done that very much before. The university provides a number of resources that you may find useful. The English Language Education Centre is one of the main ones. It provides free support for students learning English, such as courses, workshops, independent study materials. That's the main URL to go to. I will provide the slides, and if you look at the slides in PDF or similar, you should find that that's a clickable link that will take you straight there. Using the centre cannot hurt your record, and English is absolutely vital, both for your courses and for your project, of course, so I strongly encourage you to take advantage of all the resources that are available. You may also find that Graduate Writing Centre to be a useful resource. Have a browse around the web and see what you can find. Here is the overall structure of the MSc programme. There are a few more variants than are listed here, I think you'll find, so if your programme doesn't look exactly like this, don't worry about that too much. But roughly speaking, we have 60 points worth of courses in each of Semester 1 and Semester 2, and then a further 60 points allocated to the individual project over the summer after the taught courses are finished. So in Semester 1 you'll do a course that's called Informatics Research Review, or in some cases some more specialised replacement for it. And in Semester 2 you will study the Informatics Project Proposal. Now those courses are quite generic, and they are set up to equip you for doing research and understanding research in the field of informatics, rather than with having the aim of teaching you any specific technical material. The other courses that you take will be aimed at teaching you specific technical material. The dissertation that you do over the summer works roughly like this. There's a vast number of different topics that you can do. The actual work towards your dissertation will start in May and you submit in August, so between then you should be expecting to work full-time on your project. There's an allocation process for trying to make sure that everybody ends up with a project topic that they're happy with, and I will have more to say about this in a more specific talk later in the semester, but for now let me just give the basic outline. So the default way that this works is that staff all propose lists of possible projects that they think would be interesting for students to do, and these are put together into a giant list, and in January you get to look at this giant list and select a small subset of those projects that you personally are interested in doing. Then there's a complicated constraint satisfaction process that gets gone through to try to make sure that everybody ends up with a project that they can do and that they're interested in doing, and then that's how it goes on. It is also possible to propose your own project if there's some suitable aspect of research that you want to undertake for your MSc dissertation. If you do that, you need to discuss it with a member of staff and agree on something which is about the right size and about the right kind of thing to actually make an MSc dissertation. But however you get allocated a project, by the time you reach April or May, you will have been allocated to a supervisor on an individual project. Some projects exist in groups. Most projects are one-to-one between a student and the supervisor. And in the IPP, the Informatics Project Proposal, you will, in a preparatory stage, work with your supervisor to write a more detailed proposal for that project and plan out the kinds of things you might do and do some background reading. And exactly what you do in the IPP will depend on the project, but it gives you a bit of a head start and a chance to get some feedback on your ideas, so that when you get to the stage that you're working full-time on your dissertation, you're well equipped to do so, and you know what you're doing, and you have a plan that has been agreed to be a sensible plan, and then you can just motor straight on ahead and do some great stuff. In the taught courses, you will have probably more familiar to you collection of coursework and exams, and both they and the dissertation are marked according to what we call the Extended Common Marking Scheme. This is common to UK universities. It may look very different to you if you've come from a university somewhere other than the UK. And people often worry about the fact that the marks that most people get according to this common mark scheme can be quite a bit lower than exist in some other countries. So this is the key. These are the key thresholds to look at. 50% is the pass level performance for MSc, 60% is the merit level performance, and anything above 70% is distinction level performance. And such marks are awarded cautiously. So if you look at our at the URL at the bottom there, at the description of the Common Marking Scheme, you'll see that it gives you phrases such as these: truly professional piece of scholarship, significant personal insight or creativity or originality, and well beyond that expected at the appropriate level of study. So what this says is that almost nobody will be expecting to get marks above 70 for everything all the time. You should see that as being if you get a mark above 70, you're doing very well on that particular piece of coursework, better than is typically expected. And so make sure that you look at it in that light. In order to get an eventual merit or distinction on the MSc as a whole, you need to meet appropriate hurdles in both the courses and the project. You have to do well on both in order to come out with a merit or distinction in the MSc overall. So in most of the taught courses, marks will be based on both coursework and a final exam. Some courses are assessed only on coursework, some only on a final exam. Coursework might involve programming, might involve doing some experiments, might involve writing an essay, might involve doing a bit of research. It's very, very varied. Where there are exams, some are done in December, and this year in December, because of the pandemic, those will all be being done online. Others will be done in April or May. It depends entirely on the course, and you can find that out by looking at the DRPS entry, which I'll show you in a moment. There is only one attempt per subject. There are no resits, so it is important that you revise thoroughly for the exams and go in well prepared to do those things. In order to be allowed to continue to the summer part of the MSc and complete that summer project, you need on your taught courses to have an average mark of 50% or more, and as a separate hurdle you also need to pass at least 80 of the 120 points of the semester 1 and semester 2 courses at least 50%. Okay? So this is to ensure that you have an appropriate grounding in the field that you're intending to study for it to make sense for you to go on and do a research dissertation. Couple of slides of important rules. So, one thing to be aware of is that there are strict deadlines both for the coursework and the project. It is important that you take those very seriously and plan to meet them. In some cases that it may be possible to submit a few days later, but there will be a mark penalty if you do it, and in some cases it is simply not allowed. So late submissions may score 0. You should therefore assume that when you see a deadline for anything, it's a real deadline that you really must miss, and something very bad might happen if you miss it. Now, of course, sometimes there are exceptional circumstances, such as serious illness, that mean that you cannot meet a deadline. And in those cases, extensions, which you must ask for before the deadline, not afterwards, are possible. And this is all covered in more detail in the MSc Handbook. The URL is there. The MSc Handbook is the source of all wisdom for many such things. But you should bear in mind that these extensions are really for serious circumstances, not for you had a bit of a cold. Okay, you are expected to plan your time and make sure that you get started on your work as soon as you possibly can. Bear in mind that you might well have clusters of deadlines that mean that you can't achieve everything if you leave things until the last minute. So don't. Be well organised. The second category of important rule is the need to follow the principles of good academic practice. And this URL, these two URLs here, are very important to look at. Please, although some of the URLs in this talk are things that you might go to if you're interested, these two are URLs that you must go to, especially the second one, and you must read its content. Okay? Because this is the one that's going to make sure that you understand what good academic conduct is. Now, some parts of this will be obvious. Okay? You must do your own work. If you hand in coursework that's under your name, it must be work that you actually did. That isn't going to surprise anybody. But also there are rules that may or may not be the same as the ones that you're familiar with from your previous institution, to do with how you do good referencing, and to do with the fact that if you use more than 3 or 4 words from somewhere else, you must put them in quotation marks and give a reference, not just give a reference, and so on and so forth. These topics will be discussed more in the IRR and IRP courses. There's nothing wrong with being uncertain at some point about whether something that you plan to do, whether that's some kind of discussion of the coursework with your fellow students, or whether it's some use you would like to make of some external resource, is allowed or not. You might very well find yourself uncertain at some point as to whether something you would like to do is allowed or not. In that case, ask. Okay? In most cases, the course organizer will be the right person to ask. Kyriakos Kalokoti is the person who is in charge of the formal processes when misconduct is suspected to occur, and he also is an excellent person to ask if you find yourself in a situation where you're not sure whether something is allowed or oversteps the mark. Let's talk a little bit more about these taught courses, these 50 points that you have in each of semester 1 and semester 2. We have, roughly speaking, 50 taught courses at the MSc level available this year. Depending on the specific degree programme that you're on, there may be some compulsory courses that you have to take, and the talks by the specific degree programme coordinators will have some more information on that. In some cases you may want to take some additional undergraduate courses or some courses which are external to informatics, and in some cases that will be allowed. There are some rules that have to be followed to make sure that you're doing enough of the courses that were designed into the degree programme that you're on. Your personal tutor will be able to give you advice on your course choices, and I will show you in a moment some information that you'll be able to find on the web that will help with that, and you should look at that before you talk to your personal tutor ideally, so as to make best use of that meeting. You must choose courses for both semesters by the end of week 2 in semester 1. So this year that's Friday the 2nd of October 2020, and ideally you should do it earlier than that. Now people do sometimes say, well, why can't I change my mind, or why can't I wait and see what I would like to do in semester 2 until semester 2? But for various reasons, for example timetabling of exams, unfortunately the university does insist that you have a full schedule of all the courses you're going to need to take this early, so make sure that you take that seriously. We have a number of different degree programmes within the MSc, from the general informatics at the top to some very specific technically specialised MSc programmes such as the Advanced Technology for Financial Computing one. And within each MSc programme there are a number of themes that into which the different courses that you may do will fall, and the degree programme leaders will have more to say about that in due course. But some things I can say generally. Most MSc courses, now we refer to MSc courses as being level 11, they're usually worth 10 points. Now what does 10 points mean? Roughly speaking, it means that doing that course in its entirety should take an average student about 100 hours of work, everything included. So that includes attending lectures, it includes doing coursework, it includes revising for the exam. Now that can only ever be a rough guide, but it is useful to bear in mind. What you may well find useful in order to help make sure that you're balancing your work appropriately is actually to use a time tracking app or similar and track how much time you spend on each course. But of course you must also make sure that you're spending the time in the most appropriate way for the course, and paying attention to what the course organiser tells you about each individual course will help you to do that. Some courses are worth 20 points, and that, unsurprisingly, means that those things are supposed to take you roughly 200 hours of work. The degree programme tables for your degree programme, which you will find at DRPS EDACUC, are the golden copy. They're the official reference for what the rules are about the courses in your particular degree programme. A more friendly place to explore what you can do is the Path Programme Builder, and you'll probably want to have a look at that too. The MSc programme, the MSc handbook for your specific degree programme will have something to say mostly about the overall shape of the courses in your degree programme, and your personal tutor can give you personal advice as well. So let's have a look at a few of those in a bit more detail. This is a screenshot from a degree programme table. This one is from the full-time Artificial Intelligence MSc, and you can see roughly how it goes. So in this particular MSc there are 3 compulsory courses. The Dissertation, of course, is compulsory, and Informatics Research Review and Informatics Project Proposal. That's IRR and IPP, which I already mentioned. Those are the 3 compulsory courses for that degree programme table. And then if you scroll down, you'll find that it gives you, so you've got a group A here that says select exactly 100 credits in this group, and it'll tell you what courses are allowed for that particular MSc, and so it goes on. Have a browse around. I think you will find it reasonably understandable. Here is Path. Path is a bit more kind of touchy-feely. It's quite good for filling in your programme and seeing how things fit and making sure you get a visual representation of which things are in semester 1 and semester 2 and so on. So have a look at that too. And you'll find links to those, of course, in or near the MSc course handbook and also on the ITO web pages. Sometimes the rules as laid out in the DPT may feel really constraining, and you may feel I could design a much better MSc programme if only I were allowed to take this specific course, perhaps this specific course from one other school in the university. And sometimes that is allowed. So if you talk to your personal tutor about such a thing, perhaps you end up saying, gosh, I really would like to take this psychology course that isn't mentioned in my degree programme table. It may be that you can get what we call a concession to allow you to take a course that isn't formally allowed according to your DPT as a special case. So that's always worth asking about. One thing that is not flexible is there is a hard limit on how many undergraduate courses you can take, naturally because this is a postgraduate course and you're going to go out with a postgraduate qualification, so you have to be studying enough courses at postgraduate level. Many people arrive at the MSc and wish to improve their programming skills, because programming is really important for many of our courses, and we have a number of courses that may help you do that. Introduction to Practical Programming with Objects will help you with programming in Java, for example, so do have a look at these ones and see whether one of those might be useful to you. Hopefully everybody has done some programming, but you might well want to take one of these courses and improve your programming skills if you haven't done very much. So just as a rough guide, if you have less than 2 semesters of programming experience, or if you've maybe written quite a few small programs but you've never written a large application or optimized code, you might well want to consider enhancing your programming skills by taking one of these courses. I already mentioned the need to be very organised in the context of deadlines. You'll find that time management is, to say it's everything might be a bit of an exaggeration. It is really important. Organised students get the highest marks, and improving your time management and becoming more organised is an extremely valuable transferable skill for the rest of life. So if you feel you have any scope for improvement in your time management or your organisation, this would be a great year to implement those improvements and work out how you can improve your skills in that area. A mistake that students often make is to overestimate the importance of spending time on coursework and maximising their marks there, and underestimate the importance of spending time on preparing for exams so as to maximise their marks there. Where to the extent that your aim is to get the best overall mark, you'll usually find that exams, even though the actual exam is quite short, carry a lot of weight, and therefore it will be important to make time to revise for exams, even though the revision doesn't in itself carry any credit. You will probably get quite stressed at some point. Many people do. Almost everybody makes it in the end. Lots of people worry a lot. If you keep working, keep trying, and stick to it, you will almost certainly make it through to the end of the MSc and learn a vast amount on the way, so I hope you will. What you mustn't do is to work absolutely all the time. If you find yourself not doing as well as you would like to, there can be a temptation to just work more hours to such an extent that you make yourself ill, and that's not good. It's important to get enough sleep, to eat well, to have some kind of social life, even if that's a bit difficult this year, and extremely important in Edinburgh, get some sunlight. So if you've never lived as far north as this, this may come as a bit of a surprise. In the winter it will get very dark, and you'll find that it will be important to get outside and get some sunlight every day, and you may need to plan your life so that you can do that in the middle of the day when there is a decent amount of light around, even if it means you then need to work later on in the evening when it's dark, because otherwise it can get you down. Do talk to us. There are lots of support resources available. Your personal tutor's already been mentioned. There's a student support team who can also help, and many other resources within the university. We are sympathetic to problems. We've seen them all before. We would like feedback. We would like to help. And so do give us the chance to do things. It's always very frustrating when you hear months later that a student had horrible problems and didn't tell anybody about them. Course choice is extremely important, so do spend some time now getting information about your courses. Feel free to try them out. You can look at the first lecture or two and see whether the course really seems to be what you were hoping it was before you absolutely finalise your choices. So do that. We offer a relatively non-hierarchical and informal style of teaching and learning. You'll find that most members of staff here are very approachable. We do expect responsibility in return. You're very much adults, mature learners, and expected to behave as such. All our documentation is online. There's lots of it. You must read it. Especially you must read the Taught MSc handbook. Read all of that. It's not very long. And it's got lots of very valuable information in. The other thing that people sometimes don't do, and it is really important, is get in the habit of reading your email. I know email may seem a bit old-fashioned to the instant messaging generation, but email is used as a major means of communication between staff at the university and you. There will be lots of opportunities that may be useful to you. Some of them will come out at short notice. You don't want to be finding out a week later that there was a really fascinating talk you would have loved to go to if only you'd known about it, but you didn't because you didn't read your email. So as a rule of thumb, it's really a good idea to read your email at least once a day. At the very least, read it every other day. And when I say read it, I don't just mean glance at the subject lines. I do mean actually go through it, classify everything, act on the things you have to act on, and so on. That's about all from me. One final thing, we would like to have some class reps. So what this means is students who are willing to put in a bit of work being the liaison between the university organisation and the staff and the students. And this year we're hoping to also ask the class reps to do some things to help facilitate community building within the various degree programmes to try to compensate a little bit for the extra difficulty of building a cohort through physical in-person activities this year. So if that's something you might like to do, people often find it's useful for their CVs, and it can be fun, and it can be a good way to help you make more connections and have more time yourself. Then please email me your name and your email address. Well, I'll have your email address, won't I, if you email me. Make sure you send me your official university email address, not just some other one that you happen to use. That's my email address at the bottom. There's no need to kind of write it like a job application, but in order that I can make sure we have a balance of class reps across the whole programme, please do tell me which programme you're on. Are you on the Advanced AI in Design Informatics, Advanced Design Informatics MSc, or are you on the Cybersecurity MSc, or whatever it might be? And also please tell me where you are. So are you physically in Edinburgh, or are you remote at the moment? Because we're going to want class reps in both situations, ideally. And if you're not in Edinburgh, could you tell me where you are, please? Because maybe we might want to bear in mind time zones or what have you. I think that's all from me. If there are any questions, as I say, either ask me in person now or email me, depending on the circumstances under which you are listening to this talk. Thanks.